Pop quiz. What do you do if you're trying to win an election but voters just don't like you? You steal it. That's effectively what the DNC is now doing for Hillary Clinton's campaign. So the DNC has cut off Bernie Sanders' access to VAN, a comprehensive 50-state vote file that lists voter patterns and preferences, effectively shutting down the campaign's voter outreach operations just over a month before the critical Iowa caucus and a little over 50 days before the New Hampshire primary. Why would they do this, you ask? Why would they effectively kill his campaign? Well, the punishment came about as the result of a 30-minute glitch in the NGP VAN, the vendor that handles the DNC's voter data, in which internal models for each Democratic presidential campaign were briefly available to other competing campaigns, while NGP VAN was applying a patch to the software. Now, Michael Briggs, the campaign spokesman for Bernie Sanders' campaign, states, on more than one occasion, the vendor has dropped the firewall between the data of different Democratic campaigns. Our campaign months ago alerted the DNC to the fact that our campaign data was being made available to other campaigns. At that time, our campaign did not run to the media, relying instead on assurances from the vendor. Now, at the time that this firewall went down, a low-level staffer on Bernie Sanders' campaign, Josh Uretsky, he saw that this happened, and then he proceeded to report it within 30 minutes. But if you are reading anything in the media from the Washington Post, BuzzFeed, they are trying to frame it as though he was snooping around, but it was a 30-minute breach. He found it, reported it 30 minutes later. That's the right thing to do. But nonetheless, Bernie Sanders' campaign has fired him immediately, just because even if this guy didn't do anything wrong, they don't even want to give the appearance that they are potentially resorting to unethical tactics, because they don't have to do that. They can win on the merit alone, hence the reason why Bernie Sanders is doing so well in spite of the media blackout. Now, here's what Uretsky had to say for himself. CNN explains, he wanted people with knowledge of the voter files to be able to clearly see that he was testing the depth of the breach. This wasn't the first time we identified a bad breach, he said, confirming to CNN that Sanders' campaign reported another breach to the DNC in October. We reported it to them, they thanked us for reporting it, and they told us the breach had been closed. In retrospect, I got a little panicky because our data was totally exposed too, Uretsky said, of how he handled the latest breach. We had to have an assessment and understanding of how broad the exposure was, and I had to document it so that I could try to calm down and think about what actually happened, so that way I could figure out how to protect our stuff. Now, he adds, it was 100% my responsibility, and I take full responsibility for whatever happened. So basically, let me break down what he's trying to do. So if you see a breach, well, it makes sense to test the extent of that breach. So he wasn't intentionally snooping or trying to take files from Clinton's campaign, because if you're going to do that, you're going to need a lot longer than 30 minutes to do that. But he was basically testing out the parameters of the breach. Now, regardless if you agree or disagree with that, that's one individual. That's a low-level staffer on Bernie Sanders' campaign. So to cut off access to the information that Bernie Sanders gathered that belongs to him because of a low-level staffer's actions, it's absolutely absurd. Now, the DNC has vowed to not grant the Sanders campaign access to the voter file until it has proved that it destroyed all of the Clinton campaign data it inadvertently accessed as a result of the glitch. However, as Reddit user Bastion of Press pointed out, the Sanders campaign cannot prove it destroyed something it doesn't have, meaning the ban on accessing critical voter information could be indefinite. So now let me rephrase that for you guys. They are asking Bernie Sanders to prove a negative. You can't prove a negative, you can only prove a positive, so you can't prove that you don't have information. That's not the way this works. So you see how this seems incredibly fishy? Now, the DNC is planning to audit Sanders' campaign now as a result of this, but Bernie Sanders' campaign has threatened to take legal action if his access to the information he owns and he gathered, let me remind you, he owns it, he gathered it. Thousands of volunteers put in time and effort to this work. Well, if he doesn't get that back, this means he'll be in a federal court seeking immediate relief. Now, to those of you saying that this information it's not that vital, it's very vital. Political science studies have confirmed that this information that candidates have is absolutely crucial. It can make or break a candidate. Can Bernie Sanders still technically win without this information? Well, yeah, but it is highly improbable. It's as if you're trying to win a game of basketball while playing with a blindfold. You just can't win without the information. Effectively, it kills off his campaign. And the problem is that even if they suspend his access to this information for just 1 week, that's devastating, because let me tell you how much campaigns use this information. You can talk to anyone who's volunteered or worked for a campaign. The outreach that campaigns do, it's nonstop, over and over and over and over and over. Without this information, they cannot really do outreach effectively. So now another interesting aspect about this is that even though the media never covers Bernie Sanders and there's basically a blackout of Bernie Sanders coverage, well, of course, when something negative happens, now they're all over it. So let me read you some of these biased headlines. BBC News' headline reads, Bernie Sanders campaign punished over Clinton snooping. BuzzFeed News reads, Bernie Sanders campaign accessed confidential Clinton data. The Washington Post, who broke the story, reads, DNC penalizes Sanders campaign for improper access of Clinton voter data. Now, of course, this is a heavily biased set of headlines, but you're going to see that everywhere. The one source thus far that I found is US Uncut, who has been doing a phenomenal job at reporting this and updating us on the situation. So now, Bernie Sanders is doing the correct thing by taking a strong stance against this, but it's time for him to actually take an even more stronger stance. He needs to threaten now to run for third party if they do not stop this immediately. Now, there's a reason why the Republican Party is allowing a buffoon like Donald Trump to go crazy and run amok. They're not doing this because he has leverage. He's afraid that they're afraid that he's going to run as a third-party candidate, and this is what keeps the Republican establishment in check and keeps them from trying to implement these disgusting tactics that the DNC has been using. But Bernie Sanders needs that leverage, and you need to threaten to run as a third party. Even if you're not going to follow through on that threat, I think it's essential that you have some form of leverage. To me, this is extremely disheartening. It's extremely frustrating because when you restrict voter choice, when you give individuals the illusion of choice, that's not democratic. That's authoritarian. And ironically, democracy is in the name of the Democratic Party. You are Democrats. That means you are an advocate of democracy, but yet you are blatantly contradicting everything that the party is supposed to stand for. And this is what dictators do. When dictators don't win, they try to steal elections or they restrict choices so that way voters have the illusion of choice. But in actuality, the other candidate can't actually win. We saw this in Iran, how Ahmadinejad stole the election away. Voters had the illusion of choice, but in actuality, the other candidate, Mousavi, I believe, he had no chance of winning. And this is what we're seeing now in America. A democratic republic. An actual democracy. It's insane. So now here's what we can do. First and foremost, sign the petition. I'm going to put a link in the description box. It already has 150,000 signatures. Now, sign this one. There's going to be multiple petitions floating around on the internet, but this is the one that US Uncut has posted. So it has the most thus far, and we need to jump on the bandwagon that is already happening. We can't come up with a bunch of petitions. We need to jump on this one right now. Now, furthermore, we need to send a clear message to the DNC that we are not going to take this. So first and foremost, we donate to Bernie Sanders' campaign. I've donated $10 to his campaign, and if we all donate $10 to his campaign and he gets a surge because of this, we can really send a clear message that we are not backing down. Now, furthermore, there are 2 hashtags we have to use. Now, I want you guys to tweet all day to the DNC. We're all going to lose some Twitter followers because we're going to be blowing up Twitter. So, we're going to use the hashtag Storm the DNC because there are a lot of protests right now of unions in front of the DNC. And furthermore, here's a hashtag that I'm creating that I'm going to use, and I'm going to be tweeting almost every hour today. Hashtag reinstate or boycott. This means that if they do not reinstate Bernie Sanders' access to his own data, that you will be boycotting this election. That means that you're writing in a third-party candidate in protest. Now, you don't have to follow through with that threat. You don't even have to agree with it. But we need some type of leverage, guys. We can't just allow them to run away with this because they see this crazy crowd of Republicans. They think, there's no way that these progressive voters are going to vote against Hillary Clinton because that increases the chance that a Republican could win. Well, guess what? Now, I'm ready to do that. I'm not going to vote for a party who's authoritarian. The point of voting is to exercise democracy. But if you can't do that, if you restrict the right of me to express my choice, I'm not voting for you. I'm voting third party out of protest. Now, this is frustrating because, look, here's the deal. If we don't win this primary, if we lose, I at least want to feel confident stating that I had the choice, the equal opportunity to voice my concern. If we don't have enough support with the Democratic electorate, that's fine. I accept that. But if you try to use these strong arm tactics and stifle the campaign of Bernie Sanders in a way that's arbitrary and authoritarian, I'm not supporting your party. So another thing we need to do is to call the DNC at 202-863-8000. That's 202-863-8000. You're not going to get through to them, but you will get to their voicemail system, and you can leave them a message. I'm going to do that right now because I don't want you guys to think that I'm just telling you to do this, but I'm not going to follow through myself. I'm calling them right now, and you guys can hear that conversation because I'm really amped up. Maybe you can say the same thing I did. Maybe you can say your own message, but I'm definitely calling them. And I'm going to put it on speaker so you guys can hear.
Thank you for contacting the Democratic National Committee. Our telephone reception hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Our phone number is 202-863-8000. We invite you to leave us a message. Send us an email at info at
I will send them an email too. I'll put their email on the screen. Good idea.
Our website at democrats.org. After the tone, please record your message. When you finish recording, hang up or press the pound key for more options.
Hello, my name is Michael Figueredo. I am 28 years old. I've been a Democratic voter since 2008. I voted for Barack Obama twice. I vote Democrat across the board in House races, in Senate races, in gubernatorial races. And after the DNC's actions against Bernie Sanders, if they do not reinstate his access to VAN, the system in which he has gathered information, and it's his own information, well, if you don't reinstate access to that, I can promise you I will never vote Democrat ever again, and I will vote third party every single time. And also, I will actively campaign against Hillary Clinton because I'm not going to vote for a party who uses these authoritarian, non-democratic tactics. So I can promise you, I will tell everyone I know, I will never vote Democrat again. It's going to be third party from here on out. I'm voting for the Greens. I know that won't win, but it's one less vote for you guys, and Hillary Clinton will not win. I will actively campaign against her in the general election. So reinstate Bernie Sanders' access to this. It needs to be a fair election. You guys are already limited debates, so that way Bernie Sanders is hidden away on a Saturday before Christmas. So this is completely unacceptable, and as a Democratic voter, I'm really ashamed of myself for voting for this party because I supported you guys in spite of the fact that you always sell out to corporate interests, and I'm not going to do that again. I am not voting for this party again. So give Bernie Sanders an equal chance or I boycott this election. Thank you. Sorry guys, I'm really flustered right now. I don't even know what to say anymore. This is really frustrating. It's disheartening. It's outrageous. So please join with me. Take action. Donate. Call. Use the Twitter hashtags that I said. Storm the DNC and reinstate or boycott. So that way we can really get a clear message because we've got to put pressure on them because every single day that Bernie Sanders does not have access to this information, it's detrimental. And if he has a week of no access to this information, that is going to significantly harm his campaign, and this could potentially cost him the election. We can't let this happen. This is a grassroots effort. This is a grassroots campaign. We've got to put pressure on the DNC. We've got to get this reversed.